The wind howled across the barren plains, rattling the boards of an old shack on the outskirts of a forgotten trail, where inside 3 women huddled together in the darkness, their wrists bruised from rope, their lips cracked from thirst, their stomachs gnawing with hunger as the hours bled into days. They were not criminals, not outlaws, but victims of men too cruel to be called human bandits who had raided their wagon, stolen their supplies, and left them locked inside the shack to wither away like animals. Mary, the eldest, whispered prayers through her clenched teeth, trying to give courage to her younger sister Ruth and to a stranger named Anna, who had been taken along the road and thrown in with them. Each passing minute felt like a death sentence, the stench of decay creeping in as the world outside carried on without them. Hope was fading fast, their voices too weak to even cry for help, and just when silence seemed to claim them entirely, the distant sound of hooves struck the earth, a rhythm steady and strong, like salvation approaching through the dust. The rider was a cowboy named Daniel Cole, a wanderer by reputation, known in some towns as a drifter with no roots and in others as a man who carried justice wherever his boots landed. He had been trailing a group of outlaws for 2 days, following tracks that led him to the lonely shack half swallowed by weeds. Something about the place prickled the back of his neck, a sense of wrongness that made his hand tighten on the reins. Sliding from his horse, Daniel approached cautiously, his spurs clinking against the dry earth, and when he pressed his ear to the door, he heard it the faintest rasp of a voice. A woman's plea carried through cracked lips, "Help us." His gut hardened, and without hesitation, he slammed his shoulder into the door until the rusted lock gave way, and the sight that met him made his blood boil. 3 women, gaunt and trembling, their eyes wide with terror and relief, cowered in the corner, and Daniel dropped to his knees, pulling a water flask from his coat. "Easy now," he murmured, his voice calm as his hands worked quickly, cutting the ropes, lifting the weakest into his arms. He had seen many cruelties in the West, but this was a sin he could not leave unanswered. As the shack door swung open to the wide prairie, the women blinked against the light, their limbs shaking as if freedom itself were too heavy to bear. Daniel moved with purpose, bringing them to the shade of a cottonwood tree where his horse stood tied, and from his saddlebag he pulled bread, jerky, and a skin of fresh water. He fed them slowly, carefully, warning them not to eat too fast lest their bodies betray them. And with every bite, every sip, the spark of life returned to their faces. Anna wept openly, clutching his arm and whispering blessings through her tears, while Ruth stared at him as if she couldn't believe a man like him truly existed. And Mary, who had borne the weight of keeping the others alive, simply bowed her head, her lips trembling as she whispered, "You've saved us." But Daniel shook his head, his jaw set with quiet fury. "I only did what any man should do. The ones who put you in that shack, they're the ones who'll answer for this." His voice was low, but the promise in it was iron, and the women, though weak, felt safe for the first time since their nightmare began. Daniel didn't stop at saving them. He stayed until their strength returned, watching over them by the fire as the night wrapped the prairie in silence. But his eyes never lost their sharpness, scanning the horizon, waiting for the men he knew would return. And sure enough, before dawn, the thunder of hooves broke the stillness, and the very bandits who had left the women to starve came riding back, laughing, boasting, unaware that justice awaited them. Daniel rose slowly, his hand steady on his revolver, his stance calm as a mountain. When the men spotted him, their laughter faltered, and one spat, "This ain't your business, cowboy." But Daniel's voice cut through the air like steel. "It became my business when you locked those women in a box to die." The fight that followed was quick but brutal. Daniel's aim swift and sure, his courage unyielding as he stood between cruelty and the innocent. By sunrise, the bandits lay broken on the ground, and the women, watching from behind the safety of the tree, knew they had witnessed not just survival, but justice, the kind only a man with honor in his blood could deliver. When the dust settled, Daniel returned to the women, his hat low over his brow, his expression softened only by the relief of seeing them alive and safe. He helped them onto his horse, walking beside it as he led them toward the nearest town, where a church bell rang and smoke rose from chimneys promising warmth, food, and the chance to start again. Along the way, Ruth asked him why he had risked himself for strangers, and Daniel's reply was simple, yet it burned in their hearts forever, because no soul deserves to starve in the dark when a man with 2 hands and a gun can make a difference. His words were not boastful, but humble, the creed of a cowboy whose worth was measured not in gold but in mercy. As they entered the town, people gathered, shocked to see the women alive, and when Mary lifted her chin and declared, "This man saved us," all eyes turned to Daniel, but he only tipped his hat, for he needed no applause. And friends, if this tale of courage and compassion touched your heart, if you believe in heroes who ride not for glory, but for what is right, then saddle up with us, hit that subscribe button, and ride along for more Wild West stories, where justice, hope, and love still find their way across the open plains.